Let's talk reed replacement. I want to demonstrate two different ways to replace a reed on a diatonic harmonica. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this reed, but I'm going to take it off and put it back on as though we're putting on a different reed, just to show you that once you replace a reed, it's just as good as the original reed. It'll work just as well. So I have no problems with taking this reed off and putting it back on. So the first thing that we're going to do is, assuming, let's just pretend this reed is bad, we're going to replace it. So you need the reed replacement kit. It comes with the rivet removal spine. It comes with the rivet bar, the flattening pin, the rivet pin, the tap. It doesn't come with pliers, and it doesn't come with a big heavy brick. We need the big hunk of metal or a big heavy brick to absorb the shock when we strike down on this. If you do it on a regular table, you are going to be frustrated because the table will absorb the energy and you're going to be fighting yourself. We're also going to use just a plain old regular hammer. Okay, so let me adjust things. I'm going to put the rivet head in the hole. I'm going to put the rivet pin right on top of the rivet, and I'm going to strike it with the hammer very delicately. Now, I am not a fan of reusing the same rivet. That's a very uncertain process. I don't like doing the job over and over, so unless I can have a reasonable guarantee that I'm going to succeed, I don't do it. So I'm going to use a fresh rivet. Okay? If you don't have a fresh rivet, you can use the second method that I'm going to describe it, and that's where you use a screw. So we're going to use the rivet method using a fresh rivet. So we're just going to knock this rivet out of this reed. Okay, and that's gone. We don't need that. We are going to now flatten this hole. This hole has been stretched out. So we use the removal spine and the flattening pin. A couple of taps. I always like to shift it around just a little bit. Give it a couple more taps. So now we've tightened up this hole. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Now I'm tightening up this hole. We're assuming I've scavenged a reed from another harmonica. Okay, so you can also use this method with reeds you buy from the factory, and I recommend that. It's fairly inexpensive and fairly easy to find. Using a fresh reed, you're good to go. You don't need to flatten them; they already come flattened. I'm doing the same thing to this hole. I'm shrinking that hole so that it tightens up. So now we're going to take a rivet pin from Honer, and I'm going to break one off. Whoops, I've broken two off. Okay. That goes through and through the reed plate. Take the rivet bar and shove that in. So that's nice and snug now. Okay, we have this little post hanging up here. We're going to take our replacement reed and we're going to put it on the post. Now what we can do to get it to sit is use the spine to get around that and just tap it down. Okay, so now that's fairly snug. You can see it stays in place, it's so snug. I'm going to look up to the light and center this. And that's good. Now, I'm going to flatten this using the rivet bar and the I'm going to flatten this using the rivet bar and the flattening tool. But before I do that, I'm just going to make a nice flat top on the surface, so there's less chance that it gets bent as I start flattening. Okay. Very simple. Couple of whacks, and you can see that reed is now settled. Now, before we get any further, we're just going to keep rechecking the centering. So I have a video on centering the base of the reed, and this reed, the base is a little bit off to one side, so we're going to file down this rivet so that as we hammer it in the rest of the way, it's going to straighten the reed. It's going to straighten the base. So I'm giving this rivet room to expand as I whack it down and expect it to center this reed for me. Okay, and there you go. I'm going to double check. Make sure everything is hunky-dory. And we've replaced that reed. It's good as new. So that's the rivet method using my reed replacement kit. Now we're going to repeat the exact same process using the screw method. The screw method is universal. You could do this. You'll have 100% success rate. It might take a minute or two more to do, but you will always get success with this method. I can guarantee that. So again, we're going to pop the rivet out. Okay, we're going to, same thing, we're going to flatten surface. Now we're going to drill a hole through the rivet pad to make it bigger. Okay, and to help myself out, I'm going to drill the hole upside down. Okay, so I'm going to use a drill press, and I'm going to drill. This is the top of the reed. I'm going to drill it this way. Okay, I've drilled that. Now you can clean up that hole with whatever you like. I have a little tiny reamer here that will work nicely. You can maybe use this to get rid of the burrs, maybe enlarge the hole a little bit so that you have more wiggle room. The advantage of using a screw is that it gives you room to shift the reed around before you confirm where you want it placed. Okay, so that's a scavenged reed or a brand new reed from the factory that we are going to replace our bad reed with. In reality, it's the exact same reed I started with, but I already told you that. This is the M a 1.4 tap. We're going to be using M1.4 screws. The native hole that was in this reed plate is just perfect for this tap. You don't have to enlarge the hole or anything. So we're just going to go right ahead, fire away. You can use a bit of mineral oil so that your tools last longer. I just keep forward pressure, gentle pressure, and through you go. And pull it back. Now, I like to flatten. I'm obsessive about flattening because replacing reeds can warp your reed plates. I was with a world-class harmonica player who'd been playing for decades and replacing his reeds for decades, and he said, you know, this harp doesn't play well. I took a look at the reed plate from the side, and sure enough, he had replaced most of the reeds, and it was bent like a hockey stick from the side. It looked like a hockey stick. So you got to be careful. You got to keep your reed plates flat. Okay, so that's been flattened, that's been tapped. We're going to get our brand new reed. Now I just put it up to I shove it to the bottom of the slot, and then I pinch it in place. And then if you look through and through, you can see the holes line up. Okay, if the holes line up with your own eyes, you're good to go. I'm just fetching a these are 5mm long M1.4 screws. They're 5mm long so that you could put them in with one hand, and you don't need a tool holder or fancy equipment. Now of course they're way too long to use. We're going to snip off the other end, but not until we're sure everything is as we want it to be. So what I'm going to do, I see this is in the slot. I'm going to tighten just about all the way, and then I'm going to back up a little bit. Then I'm going to use my eyeballs and a reed wrench, and I'm going to center the reed. You know, looking through the light up, or move it up, move it down, move it forward, move it backwards. Once you got it exactly where you like it to be, just check with my own eyes, you pinch it hard and it's not moving. I guarantee it's not going to move, and that allows you to tighten the screw. Now, in tightening the screw, did something shift? We're going to check again. We're going to double check. Sure enough, the reed is crooked. So if I was using a rivet, I'd have to basically start over again, or go through a few other steps. But because we're using a screw method, I just have to untighten, adjust, and then retighten the screw, and we're good to go. If you find that you're having to repeat the process over and over, you maybe made your clearance hole too small, and you can use that reamer to make the hole in the rivet pad bigger. Okay, but there's always, I guarantee, always going to be a way for you to achieve success. Look at that, perfectly centered, and I just plink it. Prove. Now we have this atrocity sticking out. That's no big deal. Watch your eyes. We're going to take a pair of flush cut pliers. Okay, that's gone. We have a little burr. This is a draw reed plate. We're going to flat sand it. Now look at what happened. As I squeezed with the flush cut pliers, it loosened the reed, and it shifted. So that's very easy to fix. It's very common. So we're just gonna use a reed wrench to straighten out that reed. It's exactly where I want it. Pinch it in place and tighten. So even if this reed wasn't so obviously tilted, that was my next piece of advice. Recheck and retighten that screw, and then deal with this. It's a draw reed plate. We can flat sand that. If it's a blow reed plate, all you really want to do, because it's not really going to cause any problems, it's just a bit sharp. Clean up that surface. You can even use the Grobet file to clean up that surface if you want. Now that the reed has been replaced, I guarantee you're going to have to do some reed work to fix the shape of the reed. It's probably out of shape and it probably won't play very well just like that. You'd need some adjustment, and I guarantee it's going to need tuning. It might be very sharp, it might be very flat, depending on how forward or backwards you put it. But that is to be expected with a replacement reed, even a brand new reed from the factory. So there it is, 2 ways to do reed replacement.